to all the players and the users of Toolbox for Creativity. And we are joined today by Norhan, who is connecting with us all the way from Cairo, from Egypt. Hello, Norhan.
Hello, Eric. How are you?
Very good, very good. So thank you for being with us and willing to share your experience. So Norhan, you are an expert in gamification and the use of gamification for learning and training. So can you tell us a little bit more about that and your experience?
Okay, I've been actually working in gamification and using it in education and for educational purposes for a couple of years now. I'm really interested in I got really interested in the field a couple of years ago because I realized that I'm already using activities in my trainings and with my learners. But I needed to find like a framework or something that shows me that what I'm doing is I'm going the right way. So that's I kept searching, and that's when I found the concept of gamification and using games in education. Actually, I'm currently working in a foundation. It's a nonprofit organization. I'm working with the underprivileged children, underprivileged women, and people with disabilities. And I'm using my experience in designing educational programs to support them. I've worked in designing board games and virtual experiences. It's my passion, and this is where I find myself and where I find the value when I'm helping others or supporting others to learn something.
Fascinating. And well, on behalf of everyone, I would say thank you for dedicating your time to helping others, because that is something that I think a lot more people should be doing. So thank you for that. And you mentioned that you have been using games even before you joined the whole community of gamification in your training, because it makes sense. And the theory and all of these materials that have been published by researchers tell us that games are a better tool for education. But in your experience and through the research and work that you have done, why would you say, and this would be my first question to you, why would you say that games are needed in order to improve learning? Because some people believe that learning should just be classroom, teacher talking, student memorizing, and the basic formula.
Well, in my own experience as a learner, I have been in public schools for my whole life. It wasn't really an enjoyable experience as a learner. Yes, actually, because I like moving around and I like talking and discussing things, criticizing what I get, but I didn't find this in the public school system. And that's what made me want to change this for the other learners. What I've been through, that I've seen how this affects the brain, regarding the cognition part, the engagement of the learners. And if we go to the studies, we'll see that neuroscience have proved through doing those brain scans with the learners who experience learning through games and game-based learning, and others who do not. That the traditional way of education is like blocking somehow the neurotransmitters in the brain. It's like putting much stress on the brain blocks the flow of information. While on the other side, if you use games, people are just enjoying the process. So what they do is that it's like they're not focusing on the learning itself, but they are focusing on the fun, and it goes like into their brains without even noticing. So you can store information better. You can reach high order thinking and better recognition and influence behaviors better through games. This has been shown through studies, and I've actually seen this through my work. I've seen this with underprivileged children and with women and people with disabilities. But again, it was obvious with the children, as working with schools, so you see that a huge difference between their interaction, huge difference between how they show themselves and express themselves, how they build upon the information they get. It's so different from just getting them direct lecturing, direct instruction, and just letting them explore the game, go through the game,
Yes,
and enjoy the experience.
yeah, that's amazing, because you're focusing so much on the science part of the education. You're talking about the neuroscience, you know, the brain scans when people use games or physical activity, to what some people call active learning, and also the behavior part, how people react to simply sitting down and memorizing, as opposed to going through a game or a fun activity that helps them learn. So thank you for that, because this is something that a lot of people don't really understand about the games in education. And thank you for sharing that. And I also relate a lot with what you mentioned about not enjoying public education, especially when I was a child in Venezuela, which is my birthplace. I found it really frustrating. So thank you for sharing that experience. And
we've all suffered as learners.
unfortunately, and hopefully we will change it as well. So in your opinion, and this will be my second question to you, based on the games you have created, or maybe games that you have played and enjoy, what is the main difference between a game that is designed for fun or a game that is designed for teaching?
Okay, traditional games that are designed for fun, they are focused mainly on the attraction of the player to keep playing and keep advancing through the levels. They might work on improving some skills, like for example problem solving or memory or stuff like that, but it's not a must. The main focus is the attraction of the player and keeping him playing all the way. On the other side, the educational games, I claim that they are a bit complicated, or they have deeper levels, because the designer that thinks of an educational game, he's just thinking about how to link the learning outcome and engage the learner and keep him all the way going through the levels, taking him step by step till he reaches the learning outcome. And also that this educator, he needs to, or the designer, he needs to assess the level of learning or the level of knowledge that the learner reached. So it's like you're having like a tons of stuff that you need to put inside the educational game, and you need to keep observing the learner all through the process. And of course, you keep taking feedback and you keep coming back to the learner to make sure he's getting the best learning experience.
Yes.
So I believe it might be a bit has deeper aspects, or different aspects, more aspects, if you can say that. But they are both fun and I like them.
Definitely. And again, spot on this issue that you have mentioned. The first point you mentioned, or that caught my attention on your answer, was that commercial games, probably they design them for people to keep on playing. So that's what they want. They want more people to keep on playing, to go further, and perhaps eventually in future buy an expansion or buy the next game, because we like the game. Whereas in education, we have to focus on so much more, because to keep on playing the game is one thing, but the designer has to focus on something that, according to my research, is sort of explained through the phrase well-designed games. So for education, we just can't make games. We have to make well-designed games, which means that there is a huge pressure, and this is true on the designer. And you mentioned something that is a key word on education, which is assessment. And this is a hot topic, because when it comes to assessment, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know what the situation is, traditional ways of assessment don't match the use of games. And that doesn't mean that games, and this is something, I don't know if you agree, but that's something that I have found. And it's not that games are not effective, it's just simply that the traditional way of assessing learning is not that accurate or valid anymore, So we need to change the way we educate, but also the way we assess the knowledge that people have gained.
I was actually reading an article yesterday about this and how the traditional testing techniques are actually pushing students to focus on the passing the test and the strategies to pass the test instead of focusing on the knowledge itself.
Yes.
Which is true. It is related to what you were saying. Actually, when you are designing a game, you cannot just put a test at the middle of the game to see if the formative assessment, to see if they got or they grasped the information you want, or at the end you put a test. No, it cannot be. If you want to test or assess their knowledge, you need to make it creative and make it links with the theme of the game itself.
Yeah, excellent, and 100% agree. So now we mentioned fun, which is associated with commercial games, but we also mentioned learning outcomes. And this is excellent because this is my next question. So what is the balance when creating games for education? What is the balance between the fun part and, let's say, the learning outcome or the learning part of the game?
This is a tricky question, actually.
Sorry,
I always
yes, I know.
have this challenge. I always have this challenge when designing a game, because I want to make it fun and I want to get the player immersed so much in the game he's playing to get the best engagement, because that's how I know he will the information will be stored in his memory, and I will just trigger the cognitive parts in his brain. But I'm actually at the same time very worried about the learning outcome and how to make sure it's there, and how to make sure the player was not just gone with the game in the flow and just did not grasp the concept. So that's why it is very challenging, and I believe this needs us to go and practice. You know, it needs us to go and pilot to find the right balance. It's like a balance, as you said. It's a ratio, whether to put how much fun and how much knowledge. I don't want to put so much knowledge so that the learner gets bored, and I don't want to put so much fun so he goes with the flow and just forgets about the concept or just ignores it because it's so much fun playing with my friends and playing with the mechanics and stuff like that. So I believe piloting, testing would give us a good insight about this, and also the thing that the assessments, we need to find those innovative ways to put in the game to make it easy for us to assess the learning outcomes, that it's there.
Yes, yes. And you mentioned the fact that when people are playing games, if it is a good game, well-designed game, people will get into it so much so that they will start having fun and will feel completely immersed in the activities of the game, and that is good. But at some point, we need to measure the learning outcome, and this is always a little bit tricky. But you gave us very good advice already, and something that you mentioned, the Toolbox for Creativity does, which is after each iteration, the iterations can be short, 1 day, or they can be 1 week, 2 weeks. But after each iteration, after creating a prototype and testing it, there is a moment of reflection. And this moment of reflection has to be actively pushed by the trainer or the lecturer. And the idea is that people discuss the idea that they are developing, how they translate that idea into a game, and the challenges they're facing. Because sometimes it's very easy to start a journey, but to forget exactly what we're looking for. And we must, as trainers, keep on driving the trainees or the students back to the learning outcome and actively make them think about this, so the learning sticks. You know, it's not just the game, but it's the learning and the game. And that's the technique that I'm using for Toolbox for Creativity.
You know, I've always told my team that the reflection part of any activity or any game is the most important part.
Yeah.
It's actually more important than any other step that we do in the design, because that's when you know it worked.
Definitely. So you already answered my next question, because my next question to you was, what is the most important thing when designing and developing games for learning? So you mentioned the reflection, and I have to agree 100%. And this is from my practice, that no matter how good or perhaps not so good the game session may be, it is the reflection that allows students or trainees to explore into their ideas and the learning they achieved. So maybe
can I add another important thing?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's make them two important things. So it is the reflection, and the next thing is empathy. I need to put myself in the shoes of the learner. I need to know who he is, what he's doing, his favorite comic book, his favorite series that he's watching, his favorite DC or Marvel hero. This is very important, because I need the theme or the game to relate to his experience, and I need him to see himself in it, to see things that that makes him get in the flow. The most important part of this is to empathize with him. Yes. So this is actually very important, that we need to be human focused whenever we're designing. If I'm designing a game because I only have the needs of my learner and I don't know how his life is like, so what we do in my programs in the foundation, when I'm designing a new program for the underprivileged, we do a series of empathy meetings, and different people gets to go and interview the learner, so that we have different views. And when we sit in the design meeting, we get all those people, even those who are not to be a part of the design, because we need to see if what we're doing will fit to the learner needs and to who he is, to his persona. So the learner's persona is a very important thing beside the reflection that we need to consider when we are designing a game.
Yeah, I mean, some of the concepts you just mentioned there are so powerful and very important. You mentioned flow and human focus. That's amazing. But on the reflection part and the empathy part, this is something that is really, really important, because even, let's say we are playing a game with Marvel superheroes, and we take the game to some group of people, let's say kids in this case, and we assume that they know the characters and they should be able to play the game. But not everybody knows those games. There are people who don't have access to, for example, comic books and all of this. Mm-hmm. And that is an assumption from the part of the developer. It is an assumption by the part of the trainer, and may cause the training session to run not so well. So we always need to empathize, and we need to understand our players before just go and throw any game at them. So thank you for that advice. It's excellent.
You know that this is one of the main questions, one of the main empathy questions that we use. What is your favorite? Who is your favorite superhero? Nice. Well, especially when we're going to children, because we're mostly, maybe if they relate to the Marvel or DC heroes, we can use it. So this is a mandatory question that they should answer.
So tell me, who's your favorite superhero then? I will tell you mine.
Batman.
Batman, interesting, really, yeah. Really nice. Yeah. My favorite superhero, I don't have a favorite one, but I have two. And one is Wonder Woman, and the other one is Magneto. So if you put them together, that will be my superhero.
Interesting.
So tell me now, also I'm conscious about the time, what would be your final advice to people who are designing games for education? And this would be people who are using Toolbox for Creativity, which is traditionally people with little experience in the designing of games, board games, or games for education. So what would be your advice to these people in order to create good games?
I just have to mention again empathy and being human focused, because I feel this is very important to learn about the learner. we need to do this.
Yes.
It affects all our decisions regarding the game itself. And actually, hearing about Toolbox for Creativity, I got very interested because I feel like it's using the design thinking in a very efficient, innovative way. Like with, I always use it. I always use design thinking in when I'm designing a game. But Toolbox for Creativity is giving me extra tools to taking my learner in a cascade where he is taken level by level to assess. Maybe I can use it to assess knowledge he grasped or something like that. But I like the way of the leveling of it, where you get to explore different tools. And the most important thing is that people actually go and test. They go and pilot their ideas. That's very important. That's one of the most important things, because I always design games, and then when I go on the ground, I find that no, it needs a little bit tweaking. Maybe I didn't get this point correctly about the learner, or maybe I need to remove something or add something. So testing is very important, and it is one of the main focuses of Toolbox for Creativity. So I really like this part, and I really encourage all the designers and educators to go and test things.
Testing is so important, and collecting data as well. I mean, they go hand in hand. If you test, you must collect data, because otherwise, what's the purpose of testing? So, Norhan, we have come to the end of our 40 minutes in Zoom, and I cannot thank you enough for this advice. The conversation was amazing, your insights and your experience. I'm sure the players of Toolbox for Creativity will use, particularly use in their design, but they will find this as well useful, I would suppose, for everything, pretty much everything they're doing in their lives, because human focused testing, data collection, this is something that we should use, all of us, in all our future endeavors. So thank you for that. Thank you, Norhan. And we'll be in touch because, we share many passions. But once again, thank you for this call.
Thank you, Eric. I really enjoyed it.
Perfect. Bye.